When I was 13 years old, I was sitting in class on the morning that the atrocities of September 11th occurred. And to be honest with you, I didn't really understand what was happening on the TV. The girl behind me I had known for years. In fact, she'd grown up just down the street from me. Anyway, she turned to me and said, "Thanks a lot, Ahmed." And just like that, the identity that I had held for 13 years was stripped away from me. That exchange didn't just blindside me in the moment, but it would set me down a path, spending all of my time fighting for who I am, fighting for others to see me the way that I see myself. In fact, I've thought a lot about speaking in public forums. I thought, just because I'm a first-generation Muslim American does not make me any lesser an American, or even more so, human. And perhaps if I stood on a stage just like this and spoke to an audience just like this, and in a video that maybe is seen by others, I could start to change that narrative. And maybe, just maybe, people would stop associating the word Muslim with the word terrorist. Maybe they'd start associating it with positive words like neighbor and friend, or even love and unity. This is going to seem like a bit of a jump, but when I was 16 years old, I was working in a grocery store in my hometown, and had just gone on a break. I had my very first cell phone back then, when cell phones were just a manner of you could make a call or you could play Snake. I went out to my car to check my voicemails, and I picked up the phone, and the first voicemail started playing, and I heard a voice on the other end say, "Assalamu alaikum, this is your dad. Give me a call when you have a minute." Now, for most people, that might not seem like a very profound voicemail, but I hadn't seen or heard from my dad since I was 2. I called him back that night, and we spoke for what seemed like forever. It had to be at least, 6 to 8 hours. Over the coming years, I'd learned so much about my family history on that side. I'd learned that my grandfather was a conductor and a composer, and I had no clue where my knack for music had come from until then. And I learned that my grandparents had survived the Holocaust. Now, that phone call took me by complete surprise, and the shock, I could have stayed in that space of anger and frustration and held that against him, but instead, I thought about it, and I thought, man, I've already lost so much time. I don't want to lose what I have left. And if I had chosen to stay in that space, perhaps I would never have gotten to know who my dad was, or meet my grandparents before they passed away. When I was just out of college, I had a massive dream, and I held tightly onto this dream. I was going to be the next big singer-songwriter. I thought maybe if I could write songs that people would connect with fans who understood what I was saying, then people could start to see that Muslim Americans weren't what everybody else said they were. And as soon as I'd graduated, I packed up my car and drove 33 hours straight across the country with a friend of mine, because I wanted to get to LA. I wanted to get to LA so that I could live the dream, as they say. When I arrived, I moved in with my cousin and best friend, Fouad and Chris, in a 1-bedroom apartment. And every day I'd wake up on my inflatable mattress down by the front door, I'd get ready, and I'd head for the coffee shop. I would apply for jobs all day, and I thought to myself, if I could just get a job that would pay the bills, then I could spend all of my time busking down on the street, where I would obviously eventually be discovered. Here's the problem. Apparently, you have a hard time in LA getting hired as a college graduate with just 1 internship. So I then applied for 5 internships simultaneously and thought this way nobody could ever tell me I didn't do the groundwork necessary to get a job. Finally, I got a call from a place in Santa Monica that said, "Hey, look, we've got an opportunity for you. It's a 3-month internship. You could come and take it, and if you do well, it'll turn into a paying gig." And I thought that was great. It wasn't ideal. It wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I've been looking for so long that this was a very welcome opportunity. But then my cousin introduced me to a manager in the music industry named Ben. Ben was managing a few up-and-coming artists, and it was a shot in the dark, but I thought if I could start working in the industry, then at least I'd be a little bit closer to my dream. So I sent Ben an email, and he replied, "I'm actually looking for an office manager. Why don't you follow up with me on Monday?" Okay. I followed up with him, and I got an email response almost immediately from him saying, "Thanks for following up. Why don't you come by on Thursday and you can start then?" Start then? Did this guy just hire me from an email sight unseen? I was freaking out. I literally walked over to my cousin like, "Are you reading this the way that I'm reading this? Because I'm reading this and I'm seeing what he's doing and I'm freaking out, man." And he read it the same way I did. So of course, I called the place in Santa Monica. "I'm so sorry, thanks for the opportunity, but I got a paying gig and I got bills to pay." So I went to go meet up with Ben. He took me downstairs, we sat outside, and he started to talk. "So the internship will be on Tuesdays and Thursdays." Okay. I didn't really want to let on. Whatever he said after that sort of faded in the background, and I waited a beat, and then I sort of passively asked, "Hey, whatever happened with that office manager?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, I hired her, she's upstairs, she's great, you'll meet her." And in that moment, I realized what he actually was telling me was, "I'm busy hiring somebody for this office manager position, but if you follow up with me next week, we can talk about a potential internship." Now at that point, I had nothing to lose, and it was certainly in the field that I wanted to start aiming at. So I took it. And after 3 months, I'd done such a great job, he said, that he offered me a position to go out and be a tour manager for one of his artists, Andy Grammer. Of course, I had absolutely no business doing that at 22, but of course I said, "Yep, let's go." And I took off on the road with Andy, and we did 3 tours together, and it was really wonderful. But after 3 tours, Andy was getting ready to headline his own tour, which I certainly had no business doing. We all kind of knew that he needed somebody who had been there before. So my time as a tour manager was coming to a close. And to be honest, I had no idea where life was going to take me next. But I did know that I had found a passion for creating content because I had been doing so much of it for Andy. And I realized that this might be a way to really shift some things. In fact, maybe if people saw a Muslim creating heartfelt, meaningful, and purposeful content, they'd finally get it. Maybe even more so than writing songs about it. So I co-founded a company with one of Andy's old roommates that I'd met out on the road, Justin Baldoni. We started our company, Wayfair Entertainment, and we began to tell stories for our first series, My Last Days. Now, we talk about My Last Days all the time as a documentary series about living, told from the perspective of those who are dying. That's true. But as I was reflecting on their unique perspectives and what they share and their circumstances, it became clear to me that terminal illness wasn't the only thing they all shared. They'd all never dreamt that life was going to go this way. Think about it. They were all planning to go to college, honeymoons, they were planning to start families. And then they walked into a doctor's office and said, "This isn't going to go the way you think it is." And just like that, everything they'd ever thought about who they were and their identities was stripped away from them. And after they let the fear subside and acknowledge what they were feeling, they turned to choosing pure and selfless love. When I had put those pieces together in my mind, I took a step back and I looked at my own life. And here's what I realized. I had spent chasing after dreams that were rooted in fear. Fear that people wouldn't see me for who I really was. Fear of not being enough, of being less than. Fear that being Muslim American was not okay, that being Muslim and American was not okay. It caused me deep anxiety, and at times I couldn't feel anything but fear. And at every turn, whatever I thought I was doing to take the road that was going to get me to where I was supposed to be going, I also realized that I was just getting to the next bend in the road, and I was being guided to a place even further. In fact, I realized that we all shared this bubble bursting experience. It was simply about how we chose to respond when that bubble finally did burst. And when I realized that all of the friends I had made over the course of the years telling those stories had made that choice to choose love over fear, I too began making the same choice. And it no longer became about what my expectations were and what someone else's reality might be. Because when expectations and reality aren't in alignment, that's usually when we don't feel like something, like there's always something off in that moment. When expectations and reality are in line, of course, everything's great. It now became about showing up from a place of love and service. And doing that meant it was no longer about writing songs or creating content. It was about simply being Muslim American. Being who I was, being who I am. That discovery and understanding of myself caused the biggest bubble to burst in my life, the one created by my own ego, the one that compared me to everyone else, that said if you can't be like they are, you aren't enough. And after the initial shock wore off, I found comfort in my own skin. I found comfort in knowing that people may see me however they might find, but that I, for the first time in my life, could see myself. A first-generation Muslim American from the Midwest with grandparents who survived the Holocaust on one side, who could kind of play the guitar and had some knack for creating some cool content, and who struggled every day to make the choice of choosing love over fear. Thank you.